I'm kind of shocked to say it, but I'm very excited that this show decided to double down on the boner. So props for double boning us. Hello, interwebs, and I am very sorry that this is the person that I am, but welcome. I am here to review the latest episode of Agatha All Along, this episode titled Familiar by Thy Side. And as was expected after last week's reveal, and I'm going to kind of go full spoilers here just because by the necessity of what this episode is, I kind of have to, so just jump out here if you have not seen the episode or have not seen last week's episode especially, so just know that right now. But based off of last week's ending, this is the backstory for the teen, aka, as we get confirmed for sure in this episode, William Maximoff, the child of Wanda. And this was, let me just say up front, I really liked this episode quite a lot for some particular things that this episode was doing that I really, really enjoy. And I'm going to get to that in a second, but just to talk about the marvel of it all and this reveal, this was not very surprising, and I liked that they, in this episode, kind of pulled from what's going on in the comics. Again, I am not a comic reader, but from what I've learned through, watch-throughs and stuff, and I'm sure some of you will know out there more than me, but this character does exist in the comics, and is a very similar character, Wiccan, and I'm sure he'll develop into Wiccan in the show, but in the comics, he was a weird version of Wanda's kid that she sent back in time to, live in the body of another child, and then he grew up and just had the soul of William. This episode does something similar, and this is going to get into what I really loved about this episode, but it has it be that this is a body of a kid that died around the same time as the stuff going on in WandaVision. And so when the shit was going down with WandaVision, they either Wanda or William himself through his own powers or whatever, probably William himself giving him his mind reading ability, sort of jump ship into another body without realizing it, and is now in the body of this other kid, and it's sort of kind of an amalgamation of the two. Now, I've alluded to this a couple times already, but the reason that I like this a lot is that they are very clearly using a trans metaphor to be able to code this emotionally for this kid. Let me be, to be clear on that for those of you who may not sort of get what I'm getting at, I'm not saying that he is literally transgender, but this episode kind of goes out of its way to make sure that, this kind of lines up with a trans experience. I mean, we start off the episode at a bar mitzvah. Excuse me, I'm not Jewish. I'm very much a Gentile, so apologies if I get them wrong. I believe it's a bar mitzvah is for boys when becoming men. Excuse me. Yeah, I'm 90% sure that that's the case. So we get to see a bar mitzvah and him becoming a man, but then he goes in and gets his fortune read by one of our witches from the show. And she's the one that placed the sigil on him because she read his future, but said that he has two lives. Two lives. So on the day that he becomes a man, he is told that he has two lives within him. And on that same day, another person inhabits his body that feels like he is him, but not really him. And has two different sort of feelings about who he is inside. And then the whole show, and even Agatha at the end calls him a witch. The whole show is him wanting to become a witch, this very feminine coded magic, and to access that ability that he doesn't necessarily believe that he has, given that he's very literally a boy in the show, but wants to learn from Agatha about. So from all of that, the show is clearly using transness, not literally to say, I don't think they're going to reveal that William wants to be a girl or sees himself as a girl or is a girl, but they're using the metaphor of transness to code his experience as a character. I really like that. I have gone on record. This is the whole philosophy sort of thing that I could dive into, but I really like that because I do think we should be, we do need movies that are overtly about trans people, overtly about trans experiences, but I also really enjoy movies that take a trans experience and showcase how it's not exclusive to trans feelings, that it's not exclusive to transgender people and trans women or trans men or whatever. It's not an exclusive transgender feeling. It's something that we all feel, and that cis and trans existences aren't oppositional to each other, but we are all human. We all feel, overlap in our, displacement in society, displacement in our bodies, displacement in our identities, and identities. I wonder where I've heard that before. But yeah. So I really liked that a lot. Now I think Marvel needs to have an overtly trans character, preferably an overtly trans superhero, like just a transgender character. Period. I mean, they know they have some in the background of a couple shots of some movies, but like an overt, like center stage trans character, yes. But I do also like this style of storytelling as well, and so I really, really appreciated that that's what this episode was doing. The other thing too is he's also overtly gay. Like, they make very clear that he is in a gay relationship. The guy says, "I love you," or I wants to say "I love you" in his head. They're holding hands. He's he's flirting with him in his arms. I loved that. So hell yes, overt queerness. Yes, thank you. What I wanted. So not only, again, this is why I really liked this episode a lot. Not only is it using queer metaphor and queer vibes to tell its style of storytelling, but it is also showing overt queerness, something that the rest of the show has been kind of, playing with, but not getting up to the line with characters like, with Agatha. So I really liked that and thought it worked well. Kind of getting more on the plot stuff. I mean, this episode is kind of just filling in a lot of the gaps that we could kind of assumed to some degree, and just giving us some specifics. I did, however, like that we got Boner back. I mean, that was probably one of the biggest missteps of WandaVision. I mean, overall, I generally like WandaVision. I think its biggest misstep is the Boner stuff, and by pretending to, hey, see, look, it's Quicksilver, we're bringing him back, we're combining the universe, and it just ends up being a dumb dick joke with Boner. How many times can I say Boner in this review? And then the other misstep was its final episode, which just became superhero nonsense and sort of abandoned what made the show cool. But yeah, that was one of the biggest missteps. One of the things that kind of got a lot of people angry. So weirdly enough, they don't bring him back to undo that, but to add at least a little bit more, not depth, but I don't know, just to kind of be all right, we'll treat him like kind of a character. He's still a little bit of a joke. We're still playing with it, but kind of just bringing him in and maybe poking the bear a little bit, but also just sort of giving some little more justification for that character in this grander universe, and not just being haha, he was a dick joke the whole time. He plays some plot purposes and other things too. It's kind of retroactively doing the thing, so your mileage may vary on it, but I was I'm fine with it. I was kind of upset with how they bait and switched that in the actual show, and kind of just doing it for a dumb dick joke. It was playing with audience expectations in a kind of a callous way. And so I think that this is maybe there'll be some backlash to it, and we'll be just dredging up old wounds, I guess. But for me, it was all right, that's kind of funny, that's kind of fine. I also liked the kind of going back to the trans metaphor thing. I liked that the kid William, my cat is jumping around. They always, why do my cats always like to interrupt my Agatha reviews specifically? Is it just the witch thing? Do you just like to mess with me when the witch stuff is going down? But him kind of over worried about his parents' views of him and not his own body. And again, trans people, queer people are oftentimes over worried about what their parents will think about them being queer or trans, rather than focusing on them and their own health and needs and identity. So loved that stuff. Some of the other stuff where it was just little cameos here and there of the other witches that we've seen throughout the season were fine enough. I liked seeing the other side of Agatha's sort of delusion from the first episode. That was kind of fun to see what was literally going on that entire time. I enjoyed. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the best part, I thought, or one of the best part, the part that I really liked a lot was the final scene of the episode where Agatha gets to just be evil. You can see her... You can see a kind of a darker shift for her in this scene, and it's kind of fun, and her just being very cruel towards William. And we see that she figured out what William's goal is he wants to get back Tommy, which will be interesting to see. And yeah, it's interesting now because both of our characters are kind of done darker things. It looks like very clearly William has killed the rest of the witches. They seem to be literally dead. I do believe the end of the show, this is leaning in further into my guess, that the show will end on the note of them wishing all the characters back to life, and that'll be what they use the Witch's Road to do, rather than like the true friends were the true Witch's Road was the friends we made along the way sort of message at the end here will, I think, be the final catharsis of the show, is my guess. But we'll ultimately see, because I don't think Agatha's going to wish her child back, and I don't think we're going to see Tommy come back either. Maybe the show will go in that direction. And actually, if thinking about it now, too, that could be a direction where she wishes her kid back, but her kid is Tommy. And like Tommy inhabits her kid's body or something like that. So like that could be a way, but I don't think that necessarily lands. I think it's going to be the witches were the friends we made along the way, or whatever you want to do. So yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I'm sure there's a couple things here and there, but generally that is my overall vibe on this episode. I really like this one. I thought it was, I've been very critical of this show generally, of being like, oh, it's the queerest Marvel show as they're selling it. And me being like, but you're not being overtly queer. Here, I think finally, for me, they have actually stuck that landing, and I think can claim that title rightly, especially for the writers of the show working within the corporate conglomerate of Disney. Like, to the writers, absolute props. I think they have nailed this. They are doing a great job. No props to Disney whatsoever. This is made despite them, but to the writers, like, it is very commendable that they were able to do this, working within that sort of corporate system that very clearly is hostile towards getting anything queer on screen. See what happened recently with Inside Out too. So yeah, props to that. They are sort of dealing with my criticisms of the show. We'll see how it ultimately lands, but I really enjoyed this one, and I'm excited to see where it's going to go in its final few episodes. But what do you all think? I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. But beyond all of that, my friends, I hope y'all live long and prosper.